Uh, Donna's having trouble hearing us.
Hearing us, but she can talk, but she
And I
doesn't.
tried calling her, but her phone goes to message.
Who?
Donna,
Donna,
and I couldn't write backwards. It says restart or something,
Well, why don't
Donna,
you use the chat?
Donna, can you hear
can
us?
read that.
Can you hear me, Donna? Can you shake your head up and down if you hear me? Oh, so she can't hear.
uh-uh.
Sometimes you have to restart. So
That's what I told her to do in chat, but she's not seeing the chat.
oh, is my phone still on? Still babbling away.
I think she's trying to call her
Yeah, I did try.
kids.
Robin, I need your help. For the first time, I'm on Zoom. They can hear me, but I can't hear them. I've never had this problem before. So when you get here, come on in and help me.
Well, my
491.
background is in honor of this Torah session. All the Jews are an absolute wreck because they've just left Egypt.
Ah. Okay.
That's good.
She's on the directory that's 12423. See if we can.
Shall we begin? It's the one after 11.
Okay. I'm just gonna look to see if I had the right name. Yeah, I dialed it right. Okay.
Rabbi,
Okay,
shall we
I'm
start?
ready.
Yep.
Okay, Steve, Baruch, Atah, Adonai, Eloheinu, melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lasot divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, ruler of the world,
who has
who has sanctified us with your commandments
commanded us to
and
engage
to
in the
engage in the words of Torah. Amen. Amen, amen. And good
Amen.
morning, everyone. I just wanted to let you know that the board voted Sunday to adopt the new High Holy Day prayer book.
No, I saw that.
Oh,
And you saw it where?
I got a message from Gloria Bold that they were buying like 100 of them.
So this is the set,
Okay.
and we used them in Alabama. And so this is going to be for this for the Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur that begins October 2nd.
is that a
And
URJ book?
It's yes, it's a CCAR press book. So this is published by the Central Conference of American Rabbis. And so because of the length of the book, we're expanding Yom Kippur from 1 day to 3.
Wonderful.
But we will have not only a break fast, but we'll have breakfast.
Ah,
And
So are they expecting the congregants to pick up a set of their own, or what's the story?
right.
I-
That's what they're
Yes.
promoting.
so that's so I'm not sure exactly what the plan is, but they're start saving.
Uh,
I have my
So-
set from California that was a years ago version.
but it's not. And there is a book that I have which explains the whole book. So
You need a
I'm
book
gonna
for a
start.
book.
So I'm gonna a book to explain the book.
Can I buy that through my kids' 503 plans?
Right. Well, these
Huh?
I think they were published in 2015, so they're not brand new.
Oh, we can't get the
But
paperback, huh?
and but I used them in Alabama, I guess, for 2 years or 3 years.
Can we get them in
So
paperback?
yeah,
Uh,
I don't think they make them in paperback. No.
That's too bad.
I wonder if you can get a used version.
You can try, see what Amazon has. They did when they were developing it. My congregation in Jamaica participated in the testing a little bit, so they sent us some paperback versions of the draft version.
Yeah, the draft though, okay.
So I may have one or two, but those are probably back in Jamaica, so I don't have access to them right now.
Yeah.
Donna, can't hear us, I guess. I
She
guess
checked up.
She's muted now.
She signed off. I thought she signed off.
and she's back, but it's still not helping. Well, it's probably some simple, measure on her computer, but if she doesn't know which to press, then,
Well, the
doesn't gonna
only
help.
thing I can see is there's a mute down on the bottom where it says stop video. It also says mute, but that's not her problem. We just
No, it's not.
heard- It's her hearing us that's the problem.
Exactly.
Okay, anyway, so we are on page 34, I believe. Perak Aleph, was Israel's escape from Egypt a miracle? Is that correct?
Yes.
Hi,
That is
Natalie,
correct.
Hi.
and
Hi,
welcome.
Natalie.
So Friday, we're having our Israel speaker. You're all invited. Bring your friends. He's a helicopter medic who was one of the rescuers of the severely wounded on October 7th. And his helicopter flew in and out of the war zone several times. And on their last run, they got hit by a Hamas missile. And so it's a very dramatic story. And so he's coming in on Friday live to our synagogue. So please come and tell your friends to come. And we're looking forward to it. Okay, page 34. Was Israel's escape from Egypt, quote unquote, a miracle? So we're talking today about what is a miracle, and that is a very big question. In Hebrew, the word miracle is nes, and different Jewish thinkers are going to interpret the idea of a miracle differently. But one definition would be a miracle is something that transcends nature. So in the Talmud, there's a story of Rabbi Eliezer is fighting with all the other rabbis about some obscure halachic issue dealing with an oven and how to purify an oven that has been made impure. And Eliezer says, if I'm right and all these other rabbis are wrong, let the river that's flowing downstream suddenly flow upstream. And sure enough, as he says it, the river starts flowing upstream. And the story continues, but that I think is sufficient to make my point. If you could get a stream flowing downstream that to suddenly flow upstream, that would be considered certainly a miracle because it transcends or reverses the nature. The laws of nature are presumably unchangeable. And if you can change the laws of nature, that would be a miracle. If Richard can help us all to live forever, that would be a miracle. Not because we'd live forever, but because it's the wrong specialty. He's ear, nose, and throat, and we really need gerontology. So.
No, pathology.
Oh, pathology.
Yeah, we pickle everybody so that we all look good.
But you wouldn't be the specialist to help us live forever, right?
That's wrong. Only if you have a runny nose or bloody nose.
Yes. So it would be a miracle if he because he would be outside of his specialty. If somebody could get me to grow more hair, that would be a miracle. Or would it? Maybe it's just one of these new drugs. I could just put some lotion on every morning, and in 3 weeks, I'd have a full head of red hair or blue hair.
What color did you start with?
I don't remember. It was so long ago. Um, so, um, so let me throw it open. We're talking about miracles, and of course, many people today would see miracles in more rational terms. A miracle would be if I could get along with my spouse better, you know. So that may be unlikely, but it's not technically speaking, reversal of the course of nature. Two people could get along. So people can define miracle the way they want. But let's hear a few thoughts about how you define miracle and what that means to you when you hear the word. Again, the Hebrew word for miracle is nes. All right, Marcia, Bernie, Cy, Natalie, who'd like to start?
Against the rules of nature? Is that basically what, some a miracle is?
Well, is that your working? So you don't if you so do you Marcia, do you expect to see any miracles in your daily life in the next few weeks?
Trying to think. I don't see it coming. No.
Do we have anybody who's a little bit more what is the word? Mystical? Bernie, you expect any miracles? No. Bernie's a hardcore rationalist, and so if you can't argue the point and prove that it makes sense, he doesn't believe it. So almost by definition, I think, that okay, and Cy, you're in the Bernie camp, aren't
Well,
you?
I think that if you have a difficulty understanding or explaining it, it might be a miracle. But if you go some steps further and find that there are other people and other situations that can explain it, that takes the miracle away. And so you have to keep an open mind that the mere fact that you don't understand it doesn't necessarily make it a miracle.
Good point.
You get something like people, like, I guess to what Cy is saying, who live up far north and they see the northern lights. And one would think that that's a miracle, but it's not. It's just it's a natural phenomenon. So yet you're saying it's perception and understanding. So even this miracle of the Red Sea, that people have tried to explain that away as that at certain times of the year this had happened, and still has happened in after that time, where
Right.
the waters receded for one reason or other.
Right. Do you want to explain away the miracle?
You'd rather not.
So you'd rather keep it a miracle, or you'd rather keep it so there's two ways of looking at this. There's a way of looking at it. I can only believe in Judaism if it's rational. Therefore, if we can say it was just low tide, high tide, that helps me to believe in Judaism. And then there's the reverse approach that says, well, the whole purpose of Judaism is that God does miracles that are beyond nature. So if you explain away the miracle and you say it's high tide, low tide, or whatever, it destroys the whole purpose of having a miracle. So there's two groups that have opposite goals here. So Cy, how do you feel about miracles in general? Are you with Bernie or not?
I'm with Bernie. I don't believe in miracles.
So you're like Bernie.
Yes, we came from the same pod.
You guys are coordinating secretly
Right.
between sessions so I mean Bernie and Cy represent classical Reform Judaism that Judaism is a rational religion. Anything that's irrational is superstitious and is simply not true. And we don't want a religion to be filled with Baba Mises, that are just stupid stories that have no truth to them. But now, in the recent decades, there's another group that are very into mysticism and they like stuff that doesn't make any sense. And that caused me great angst, which caused me in turn to lose all my hair.
Which you don't know what color it was.
No. Bernie.
My thinking has always been that religion started to explain things that people couldn't understand or explain. So maybe that's a little backwards from what everybody else is saying.
Mm-hmm. Yes, okay. So therefore,
I don't believe in miracles.
Do you believe in
okay.
God? Do you believe in God? God
I'm
Well,
not
there-
sure.
Well, the
Yes,
question is, what kind of God, right? We did those courses on America's Four Gods. So there's the rational God and there's the not rational God. So the question for Bernie is, what kind of God do you believe in?
I can't answer that. I'm not sure. That's part of the reason I come to this class.
But presumably he believes in a rational God, which is not a God. It's a God that's more a philosophic concept. It's not a God who has a personality and who engages in fits of anger and punishes people arbitrarily, but rather it's a philosophic premise, Aristotle's first mover kind of thing. I mean, I'm putting words in his mouth, but I'm thinking that's what he would say.
If he understood what you were talking about, he probably would.
But he doesn't believe in a God who could say, cause a bunch of polar bears to suddenly start wandering across the golf course in Sun City.
I don't see that happening.
So
All right, Natalie.
I think we just use the term very, very loosely. Like when you were talking about husband and wife or whatever, getting along, that would be a miracle. I don't think most people delve into it the way we are. And therefore, it's been watered down and separated in daily life. Oh, it would be a miracle if I finally felt better. Whatever. Compared to if we're talking about something in the Bible, which whether it's the Christian Bible or our Bible, filled with the aura and big deal thing of the miracles, different miracles.
Okay. Does the idea of miracles attract you to Judaism or does it worry you?
I don't pay attention to it.
So you don't care one way or the other.
No.
But you're not looking for a religion in which that is stressed, where the non-rational is stressed, where we are here in our synagogue because we strongly affirm that God does irrational things that are beyond the scope of nature every day.
It disturbs me when I think of the negative things that God does. and then it makes him more, it makes him more like a person. So I'm kind of confused what I believe in. I believe that there's something out there, whoever it is, whatever it was, that it wasn't just a scientific reason that we're here, evolution. But I think a lot of these are Hebrew school stories.
Ah, okay. So what I call non-rational miracle stories, Natalie calls Hebrew school stories. But I don't think I teach in Hebrew school that, I want my students to have a more rational foundation of Judaism from the beginning.
Well, that's good.
So how
Well,
do you
maybe it's
explain-
good and maybe it's not. It's hard to say.
Well,
how do you
I
come-
like the idea.
Okay. Mrs. Marcia Gratz, you are officially recognized.
how do you explain Passover as a story in religious school nowadays?
Well, that God brought us out of Egypt with an outstretched arm and did all these miracles.
So how do you explain the Red Sea? How do you
Good
That
question,
God
Martha.
parted the Red Sea and it was a miracle and
But
God
that's
did
the way
it.
you're saying you're not doing that, but you are doing that.
Right, I'm joking. I mean, but I think in religion in general, oh, I see Donna. Donna, can you hear us yet? Donna's got tech support.
She's got a
Looks
friend
like it.
over, yeah.
She's got a high-level tech person came in all the way from Colorado. Yeah, I think that I try to teach Judaism in a multivocal manner, where at the same time you're teaching it a rational religion, and at the same time you're teaching it as an irrational religion, so that someone like Bernie will hear something that means something to them, but somebody like, the other end would also.
I think a lot of it's faith-based.
Yes, Marcia.
Even if you take that miracle and say that it was a coincidence at the moment, makes it a miracle in its own way. You know what I'm saying? If you had that receding of the water, for it to happen at that moment of need to the Jewish people, Israelis, I guess at that point, if they needed that then, that it happened then, makes it a miracle. You know what I'm saying?
Okay.
I mean, the coincidences of things happening is a miracle unto itself.
Okay, Minya?
I was thinking, what about in Christianity, people who travel far and wide to go someplace that a miracle was cited or something that's believed to be a miracle, and people travel to go see what it was, what it is or what it was. I know there was one time there was a statue of the Virgin Mary, and she had tears, and they were real tears, and people went to see how this could happen because she was a idol, yeah, it's not right. And is it only because maybe there other religions that also, I guess everybody does, who believes or doesn't believe in miracles?
Well, yeah, I mean, I remember going to a museum devoted to miracles done by the Catholic saints. And they had displays of all the crutches that had been left behind by crippled people who could walk after they were exposed to the waters or whatever it was there. So they believed that if you came to this place and you got the right blessing or you did the right blessing, that you would be cured from whatever you had. And this is really, I mean, we're afraid of death, but we're more afraid of being crippled. And any religion that can promise to cure immobility is going to be very popular. Yes, Natalie.
It almost seems like there should be another term. When Marsha was talking and she said, why at that moment did the Red Sea part? That was more than a coincidence. So if we don't call it a coincidence and we don't call it a miracle, maybe there's something else, either a term or something in between to
Mhm.
complicate things.
Yes, I agree that there needs to be a second term.
Steve's got his hand up.
Yes, Steve.
Okay, to me, it is considered or quote, unexplained. Unexplained situation,
Hmm.
you know,
So
and
So,
then toward evolution of science, things got explained and then therefore it was not considered a miracle.
so you're on the Bernie camp.
Borderline.
So you're kind of like on the Bernie camp, but you don't really want to be as hardcore as he is because
Right.
you want to also respect tradition a little bit more.
Absolutely, yes.
But when push comes to shove, you would prefer to understand these miracles in semi-rational terms.
Agreed.
Okay. Bernie, so you're not going to accept Steve into your club because he's not 100%.
We'll make him a temporary member,
Thank you.
provisional member.
Thank you.
Honorary
but-
member.
In order to believe that a miracle happened, you have to believe that the whole thing happened. And I'm still struggling, I have been for a long time, with how 2 million people, more or less, plus their household goods, could have done this. Can you imagine how much time it would have taken for 2 million people to make this crossing? Just visualize how long it takes you to get out of a baseball game with maybe 30,000 people there.
Well, you don't have to believe everything to believe one thing. So I could believe that the seas parted exactly as the Torah says, and it was a total miracle. But I could believe that only 100 people went into the desert, not 600,000 heads of households. So I'm not sure I agree with you. Why do you have to believe all the stories just to believe one story?
Well, if I were an Orthodox Jew, I would have to believe the whole thing, wouldn't I?
Well, I guess you'd have to find an Orthodox rabbi and ask him.
I mean, they don't allow you to pick and choose.
Well, I guess it depends on who you are. I mean, a lot of the Orthodox people I know are, more scholarly, and they believe exactly like you do. But they're careful how they word things, and they are committed to following Jewish law for whatever reasons of their own. So they wouldn't phrase it exactly the way you phrase it, but they would basically agree with you 100%. But they're still Orthoprax Jews, at least. They practice orthodoxy. Sai.
I like to think that the authors of the Bible, in writing over a period of time, did not write any one incident in its completeness at a particular point in time. And what I mean is this: they might have written a story about the Israelis leaving Egypt, and then later on, maybe hundreds of years later, decided to add the story about the Red Sea or any other story. It was not a cohesion story written at one time. These were
Okay,
pieces added and pieces taken out over a long period of time to make a story.
which is why I'm saying to Bernie, you can believe one thing and not another, because these things may not have originally been together anyway,
Right.
right? Bernie?
Okay.
Okay, page 34, let's start reading. Who'd like to start?
I'll read.
Okay, Minya.
Our main reader.
Was Israel's escape from Egypt a miracle? The Torah's report of Israel's departure from Egypt makes it clear that the liberation was not only a human effort. We are told that the people were led by an angel of God and by a pillar of fire by night and a pillar of cloud by day. When they arrived at the Sea of Reeds and saw the Egyptian army advancing upon them, God split the waters of the sea so they could walk safely on dry land to the other side. Then God rolled back the waters upon the Egyptians, drowning all of them together with their horses and chariots. Upon seeing the miracle that God had performed for them, the Israelites sang out, I will sing to the Lord, for God has triumphed gloriously. Horse and driver God has hurled into the sea. You made your wind blow, the sea covered them. They sank like lead in the majestic waters. Exodus 15, 1 and 10. Is that really what happened? Can we believe that God sent angels to lead the Israelites, split the sea for them, and destroyed the Egyptians by drowning them? Did Moses play any role in the victory? Did the Israelites do anything to save themselves? Is the Torah study an exaggeration beyond belief? Skip the box
Okay.
or
Yeah, let's do the box, but let's stop for a second. Richard, Steve, comments.
Well, I think the main word there is exaggeration.
And why is that the main word?
Well, because it's beyond belief.
But is being beyond belief a bad thing?
No, not at all. Donna.
Well, that's what a miracle is. It's beyond belief. I think in talking about miracles, you have to decide whether you can believe in miracles or whether you can't believe in miracles, whether it's this miracle or that miracle or some other thing that's described as a miracle. You have to decide whether you can believe in it, in any of them or all of them yourself. And if you can't, I suggest that you ask God to show you, and He will. May take a while or whatever, but in Israel, we ran into several people. The word for miracle there is nes in Hebrew, and many, I shouldn't say many, and maybe Rabbi knows some of these or knows one of them at least. They are born, males are born circumcised. And that's kind of a hard thing to, you have to, wow, how about that? So as I say, miracles are difficult and they're hard to believe, but they do come from, I believe they do come from God. And ask the Lord, ask God Almighty to show you.
Richard, Shirley?
Well, is it unbelievable? Is it a miracle? I'm afraid, Donna, I have to disappoint you. I am not a believer in miracles. I believe in things that are established and occur, and that some things seem are strange, but you can always explain them. Yeah, there's some things that we can't explain, and you'll call those miracles, and I'll call them still unexplainable. Eventually, people will figure out what it's all about. To me, God is more distant. God's rational and and that was it. And like the deists of the 1700s, like Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson, they were all deists. They believed that there was a God, but God doesn't intervene in human affairs, and that's the way. And this and in essence, did this actually occur? And that's something that we have to listen to religion, because there's no rational basis to say. I don't think there's any archaeological evidence or evidence that the Jews were enslaved in Egypt. Certainly, they did not build a pyramid. The pyramids were finished in 1756 BCE, and the Jews probably were enslaved after that, if they were enslaved at all. So, I just can't believe in miracles. Just
That's okay, Richard. You don't have to.
that's great, you know.
But it's nice when you do.
Shirley, Steve, Cy, Minya, Shirley.
Years ago, when I taught Sunday school for an organization called Jewish Parents Institute, fortunately, I taught 4- and 5-year-olds the first year because I was not allowed to teach anything about God. So how do you teach miracles if you can't teach God? So I had really a lot of studying to do every week before next week's class, because I had to come up with some reason why this happened without using God. I can't tell you what I came up with now. Some little guy that used to put some oil back and make the candles burn for Hanukkah. I mean, just things like that. Little kids believe that stuff. That's Hebrew school stuff. But then the next year, when I did the 13-year-olds, it was very hard because they don't believe that stuff. I don't remember what I said, but I got promoted, so I guess I did okay. But it's really hard to teach. You can't teach miracles if you can't teach God.
How can you teach Sunday school if you can't teach God?
True.
They wanted to be able to teach their children what they wanted them to believe about God themselves. They didn't want an outsider telling them what they wanted.
Interesting. I'm sure that made it challenging for you, Shirley.
It was. I taught for 4 years and it was really hard.
I
I
bet.
finally said, that's it. I can't do it anymore.
Oh,
Well, but each religious school and each religious school system has their own theology, and they want their teachers to follow that. And some are stricter than others. Natalie.
Yeah. This is for Bernie. What basis do you celebrate Passover then?
It's possible to celebrate these holidays as a cultural thing rather than as a religious thing.
Mm-hmm. That's what I thought you would say, but I wanted to hear what you thought.
Okay, let's read on. Minya, you want to read the box at the bottom right-hand corner, page 34.
I told you what the teacher told us. We are told about the 10-year-old whose father was driving him home from religious school. What did you learn about today? His father asked. The child responded, the teacher told us about the Israelites' escape from Egypt. They came to the Sea of Reeds and built pontoons and drove across the water. As soon as the Egyptians and their tanks were on the pontoons, the Israelites sent in their air force and bombed them. The father looked with surprise at his child. Is that really what the teacher told you? Not really, answered the child. But if I told you what the teacher told us, you would never believe it. I think that's a good story. It was a miracle. There are always those who will deny the existence of miracles. They claim that the works of Hashem are simply natural phenomena. This was the attitude that many non-believers assumed in regard to the splitting of the Red Sea. It was caused by an earthquake, they might claim. It was just a freak accident of nature. To forestall any such beliefs, Hashem magnified the miracle of the Red Sea. He split not only the Red Sea, but also all the waters in the world. Even water that was in a cup gravitated to two separate sides. Because of this, no one could deny that the splitting of the Red Sea was a true miracle.
Uh-huh.
Okay,
So
I
this
want
is
to know in the Bible, it says that a cup of water gravitated to one to two sides.
where'd you get that?
The Bible?
The Torah in the
Yes,
Old
yes.
Testament, the Torah, is that in our Bible that says
No,
that?
no, it's definitely not.
Okay, so this is make-believe stuff.
Well,
Where in the Bible
we
is
wouldn't
it?
call it that. We'd call it modern midrash or rabbinic exegesis. You know, we wouldn't say made, what did you call it? Made believe
Made up
stuff?
stuff.
Made up stuff. That's not a Jewish terminology. It's
Where is
certainly
it
not
in-
an Orthodox Jewish terminology.
Where is
I'm
it in the
afraid
Torah?
that you might be classified among what he calls the non-believers. Okay, I've got a bunch of non-believers here this morning. Cy, Donna, and Marcia in that
I
order.
was thinking that when the slaves in the United States were freed, was that a miracle? To me,
No,
it wasn't any
Lincoln did
less
that.
a miracle than the Israelites leaving Egypt. But we don't celebrate it as a miracle because we're more practical today than we were 2,000 years ago. And there are so many other events that are similar.
Lincoln did that. It wasn't a miracle at all, right?
That's right.
Donna and then Marcia.
If this is just stories and they didn't bother to happen, and you say we study them because of this is custom, then I could think of better things to study that would enlighten me more than something that didn't happen, but people have made up stories about. That's just my attitude towards it. My time is more precious than that.
But this idea that this Rabbi Katz comes up with, that everywhere in the world at the same moment that the Dead Sea parted, all waters parted, it's intriguing. I mean, whether we agree with him or not, I find it interesting. You know, Donna may not find it that interesting, but I do.
You
Yeah.
can.
Okay, well, whether it happened or not is not the point for me. It's more the exegesis on the exegesis that I find interesting, regardless of its veracity from a scientific point of view. But you know, but you guys are maybe more result oriented than I am. I like just studying this stuff because I like studying this stuff. Okay, Marcia.
I was just asking Richard, where did you see in the Torah that about this cup of water thing?
No, he said he didn't see
It's
it.
in it's the bottom of that
No, the verse
box
and
on page
no, not the page.
was it
In the
35?
Torah section.
Yeah,
Not in there.
yeah, where it says it was a miracle near the bottom.
But you're not saying it was in the actual Torah
I'm looking
itself.
at the
No,
Torah.
no, I'm just saying, where was it in the Torah? And
It
you
wasn't.
were an expert than I am. You said this doesn't exist in the Torah, so someone sort of made that up.
Oh, okay. Because I was looking at the Torah and I said, I don't see this.
I'm with the BS, Bernie and Sal when it comes to miracles.
Bernie and Cy are the BS people.
And it's a miracle. It's a miracle that Donna, you got on. You were able to.
I'm sorry, what?
You made a modern miracle. You got onto the computer and were able to get the voice working.
God bless my daughter.
Ah,
Uh,
I'm still going with what I said before. The fact that something unusual happened naturally at the right time makes it a miracle.
okay. All right, Minya, according to the author of the Zohar, page 35.
According to
Let's
the
talk.
according to the author of the Zohar, God created one miracle after another to liberate the Israelites. Plagues were sent to convince Pharaoh to free the people. When they reached the Red Sea, God caused the waters to split and harden so that the Israelites could walk safely from one shore to the other on dry land. As soon as Pharaoh and his army entered the sea, God allowed the waters to crash in upon them, destroying the entire army. Many commentators ask, how can God allow such miracles? Would the world not be destroyed if the laws of nature, like gravity that causes the Red Sea to flow, were suspended even for a second? The Zohar provides an answer. Quoting Rabbi Isaac, perhaps 2nd century CE, we are told that when the Israelites approached the Red Sea, God called upon the great angel who had been appointed to rule over it. At this time, or at the time that I created the world, God said to the angel, I appointed you angel over this sea, and I made an agreement with you that later, when the Israelites would need to pass through your waters, you would divide them. Now they have arrived at the sea. Open it and allow them to pass through safely.
All right, what do you think of this story? This is from the Zohar, which is 13th century Spain. We're hoping to do a Jewish heritage trip to Spain and Portugal in October. And we'll go and see where the Zohar was composed.
This is feeling good.
Who can summarize this story for us? Let's start there. Yes, Minya.
Well, it's basically telling us that God gave an angel the job of looking over the Israelites. And he said right out that when I have a job for you to do, I expect you to be there and take care of it since I made you the angel over the sea. So it was that angel's responsibility to make sure that the sea was parted.
And the angel did its job well.
Right.
Yeah, the angel must have been around for a heck of a long time to do this. And didn't we read somewhere, or we talked about the thought of the rabbis that the angels only last a day?
Yeah, that the angels only do one task at a time.
Right. Well, this angel was looking over this part of the area for what? Thousands of years, millions of years, billions of years, maybe?
Well, if it's one task, if his job is to
Yeah.
wait until the Israelites need to flee Egypt and then do it, then angels can wait a long time. Marcia.
So basically, the story is saying that everything, and this is what I always was going through with the Pharaoh and the plagues and all. Everything is preordained by God ahead of time. God had a plan for the Israelites. God had a plan for everything in the world, and that's a hard stretch to believe. Also, it's really difficult. I mean, God hardened Pharaoh's heart. That started the whole thing, and got us going into the Passover story. And so,
Right.
yeah, so it's all preordained, is what it's saying. So that
But
that takes away free will.
Right. And I would encourage you to see that story in multiple ways. you don't have to interpret it literally, but you also don't have to interpret it symbolically only as well. Sai.
I want to ask you this, Rabbi. On this, assuming you don't believe in these stories, does that make you any lesser of a Jew? Does that supposedly give you a guilt feeling? What is there anything behind it in terms of believing or not believing the story?
No, because I think in Judaism we can believe in any of the America's four gods. So you can believe in a fundamentalist God, you can believe in a rationalist God, you can believe in a benevolent God, you can believe in a distant God, you can believe in a critical God, you can believe in different kinds of gods. And based on that, you're going to have different views on miracles. The distant God and the critical and the rational God are not going to believe that miracles are actually miraculous. So that's perfectly legitimate. I mean, on one level, I want people to be able to think their thoughts clearly and explain rationally how one set of beliefs lead to another set of beliefs. On the other hand, we're in a postmodern era where we actually encourage people to believe in multiple things that contradict one another. And that's considered good. Whereas before, 30 years ago, it was considered bad. Now it's considered good. So if Bernie says, no, I don't believe in any miracles, but I believe that the miracle of the Red Sea happened just the way it's described. 30 years ago, I would have said, Bernie, that's irrational, just makes no sense. Today, I would say that's wonderful. So thinking has its place, but in religion, you can't overthink everything all the time. I don't know, Sai, does that answer your
That's
question?
good, thank you.
Okay, that's a good answer then. Steve, comment?
No,
Okay, Marcia?
So you're saying basically that the interpretation of the Bible has changed over these last 5,000 years, or however, how long has the Torah been around, let's say?
Well, that's a hard question. That's a trick question, but maybe 2,500 years?
All right, 3,000 years. So interpretations have changed over that time. And people, in general, people don't think now the way they thought when that was written. So, I mean, Donna reads it and believes it absolutely, right, Donna? The way it is written.
I do. I do.
Okay. And a
And
lot of
another
us take this.
thing I find very interesting is that there are Jewish people today. There were Jewish people back at the beginning of the Bible. The genealogy is there. If you have your genealogy done, there will be a Jewish gene there and can tell you, you know what, how much Jewishness you are. And I find this very interesting. I mean, this is thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years that the Jewish people have existed, and through all that they went through, and they're still here. We have a Zoom
That's a
meeting
miracle
today
right there,
with
right?
all these Jewish people there. I find that most interesting.
But that's a miracle right there, right?
Well, you can say that. I mean, the people lived all through the Bible, and then all these years after the Bible. It's yeah. Say that. I think
You're correct in that.
you say God planned it. Absolutely, He did.
Yeah.
And you're
So
still
are we
here.
considered so Donna, are we a race or are we ethnic or are we religious?
That has been discussed and discussed and discussed. Ask the rabbi what he thinks about that.
Oh,
What do
we're
they
putting
think
you on the hot
about
seat.
what?
Are we a race?
a
Are
race
we a
or
race?
ethnic?
Are we an ethnic group? Are we a religion? What are we?
Okay. I'm going to pretend I didn't hear the question.
You just heard
That's a
it.
long,
It's a tough
it's a
question.
long discussion, that we can have at some point, but not right now. But yeah. but yeah, you can see Richard is in the Roman Colosseum just now, so that's you know, it harks back to 2,000 years ago. So we've been struggling for a long time, and we're still here. And as the joke goes, we were persecuted, we survived. Let's eat.
Eat.
Okay, Minya, comment? Okay, Minya, we can keep reading.
Clearly, the early rabbis were troubled by the Torah's claim that God had made a miracle at the Red Sea. Rabbi Isaac's explanation seems to overcome the problem by saying that the splitting of the sea had already been fixed or preordained at the time God created the world. In other words, God anticipated the need for dividing the Red Sea and programmed the event. Therefore, according to Rabbi Isaac, it was not a matter of a miraculous suspension of the laws of nature. Instead, the splitting of the Red Sea occurred exactly as God had pre-planned it. Other interpreters agree, but their explanations of what happened at the Red Sea are different. Some say that the splitting of the sea occurred in a natural way. Rabbi J.H. Hertz speculates that a strong east wind blowing all night and acting with the ebbing tide may have laid bare the neck of the water joining the Bitter Lakes to the Red Sea, allowing the Israelites to cross in safety. Rabbi Hertz also explains that a sudden cessation of the wind would convert the low, flat banks first into a quicksand and then into a mass of waters, which would have drowned the pursuing Egyptians.
Okay. So I think I've mentioned Hertz before. I had breakfast with a minister this morning, and he mentioned Rabbi Hertz, who was the chief rabbi of the British Empire, and he was the one that edited the very first one-volume Chumash Bible for synagogue use. And I recently collected a bunch of these books from around the temple, and I put them at the front of our sanctuary, causing the piece of furniture there to collapse, which is really a miracle. And only one side collapsed, not the other side. So we're not sure if the miracle is that the one side collapsed or that the other side didn't collapse. But either way, it is a miracle. And the books all stayed on the shelf, they didn't fall on the floor. And that's a second miracle. So I'm going to get this miracle accredited, and then we're going to become a pilgrimage site. So, but Hertz's one volume Chumash, which you can see, and if you come next time you come in the sanctuary, just go to the front right, and you'll see a whole bunch of books, and you can take a look at one of them. Was the first one created. It was used by all denominations for many decades. Today, every group has their own book. We have the Plaut Chumash, and they're in the process now of making a new one. But for many years, it was the only one. So Hertz is sort of pseudo-scientific, and he comes up with a scientific explanation for this. So to answer Sai's point, Rabbi Hertz didn't believe that to have a scientific explanation of the miracles of the Red Sea or any other made you less of a Jew in any way. Whether it happened like this or happened the other way, or just the angel did it, to me, I find both interesting. I don't care what what actually is the truth. That doesn't matter. It's just how these things were understood that's much more interesting to me. Okay, other comments? Bernie, Natalie, Minya.
I never heard of this theory before about everything is so pre-programmed. It almost, if you believe that, it almost takes away the fact that you can't, even if you wish for something, and you look forward to something that you think you planned, it doesn't matter. It's already predetermined what's going to happen.
Yeah, this is predestination. The Calvinists believe in this.
Right.
When you're born or at some point in the past, everything is predetermined.
Yeah, I was born to be here on this day, according to something like this, that it's preordained that we do what we do. You know, I have a little thing here I just looked up on the internet about the Red Sea. A new computer simulation has shown how the parting of the Red Sea, as described in the Bible, could have been a phenomenon caused by strong winds.
Which
So,
is what they talked about.
Yeah.
Now, who caused the strong winds? You gotta keep going.
So it still could be from God if you wanted to,
Amen.
but it's kind of a compromise because
No.
if you're a favor of miracles, it's better just have the angel flying down with his wings and just waving his arms and having the seas part. It's more dramatic. It makes a better movie. If you're interested in at least a veneer of rationalism, you could have God creating the winds that part the sea. So it's a matter, but I don't care. It makes no difference to me. My faith is my faith, regardless of any of those scenarios. Doesn't make any difference.
and it's a great story,
Yeah.
a wonderful
And
story.
so which do you prefer, Richard?
I prefer it as a wonderful story made up by the sages when they made the Bible from the stories that were told to tell the story of the Jewish people. Some of it's probably factual, some of it's not so factual, but it's a story. It's like Gilgamesh, the ancient story of the Syrian gods and their world and their flooding. It's the Bible's a story of a people.
All right.
But it's all
So-
real. Some of it is, some of it isn't.
Okay, Cy.
I'd like to read some information that I pulled up. I'm quoting. The consensus of modern scholars is that the Torah does not give an accurate account of the origins of the Israelites. There is no indication that the Israelites ever lived in ancient Egypt, and the Sinai Peninsula shows almost no sign of any occupation for the entire second millennium BCE, where the Israelites are said to have spent 38 years, was uninhabited prior to the early 12th century. So here's some people that don't even believe the Israelites were there.
Who wrote this that you just read?
This comes from, I don't have the author here.
The Mormon Church.
It sounds like a very Orthodox Jew. It sounds like a very Orthodox Jew. Marcia.
I'm questioning what he's reading also as to if I haven't got I really don't want to do it, so I'm not going to. One would have to go and see if there were any remains of the Jews, and historical things that were found around that time in the places they were supposed to have been to prove or disprove that statement. I mean, you were taking that as whatever this scientist is saying. Is this a scientist who I assume, is saying this, some sort of a anthropologist or whatever, wouldn't you think? I mean, I'm sure there are other scientists who said they were there, in Canaan or here or there, or Egypt.
Bernie.
I did read a book several years ago, and I don't remember the author. who made a statement that there is no archaeological evidence that a large group of people were in the Sinai Desert at any time, and that also that the technology exists to find a campfire or a resting site of very small numbers of people, like one or two.
So, but again, you could have a small group of people and still have the miracles, right? You
But
don't have to have,
there's not even evidence of that, according to this author, and I don't remember his name.
right? And so, but I operate on two levels at least. One is the historical, so maybe they weren't there, but the other one is the mythological, and from a mythological point of view, they were there, or we were there. So Leonard Fine, who was a rather grumpy reform leader, but interesting thinker. In one of his books, he said, I don't believe that the revelation of God to Mount Sinai occurred. But at the same time, I believe that my soul was there. So how could your soul have been at something that you don't believe occurred? So he said, well, the first part is the part where it says, did the thing occur? That's a historical evaluation. But the second part is a declaration of faith. Or actually, what he says, I don't know if the revelation at Mount Sinai occurred. I don't know, because it's a historical determination and we don't know. But I know that my soul was there because that's a declaration of faith. And I like that. We're trying to blend different things together that don't go together. And that's the art of religion. It's not a science, it's an art. Marcia.
So if we take away the desert, we take away the 10 Commandments. We take away everything that happened in the desert as to creation of the Jewish religion as it formed, as they had different rules that were passed and things that as they moved along. And I'm not sure I want to give that up. You know?
Okay.
Well, one of the things I look at the Torah for or at is that it's there to teach me something. And I'm trying to figure out what it's trying to teach me. It
Okay.
doesn't necessarily have to have happened, but there's a message there and I try to figure out what it is. And I don't know what this one is.
Well, the belief in miracles can lead to the desire to try to develop a reasonably optimistic a way of looking at life. Like they're saying, whether you're happy in life or unhappy in life has a lot to do with whether you're, grumpy and angry or happy and optimistic. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with, how easy your life was. So there's people who go through very tough things, but they remain relatively reasonably optimistic, and they might be happier than people who had cushier lives, but they see everything in kind of a negative way. So they could win the lottery and they'll still be grumpy about it. And they could, they can get some award and they're just like, everything's negative. So this could be, this belief in miracles here is maybe that's what it's teaching. Bernie? Okay, Natalie?
I don't see the connection with what you just were talking about with miracles. Because
Okay.
if you're negative and think about things being predetermined, that's one thing. If you don't think things are predetermined and you're waiting for miracles as an out, neither one seems to me a way to live in today's society.
Okay. All right, Minya, let's keep going. We're at the very bottom corner of page 35. Rambam Maimonides, with a little picture of him.
Use of miracles. A miracle cannot prove what is impossible. It is useful only to confirm what is possible.
Bernie, would you accept that?
Let me think a while.
Standard.
Should I go on while he's thinking?
Yeah.
It may take a while.
Okay.
Bernie's older, so he doesn't think as fast as he did 40 years ago.
Believing in miracles. In short, I do not believe in miracles, not if the word be interpreted in its usual sense as exceptions to the laws of nature. I believe in miracles only as occurrences and events that are far too marvelous for me to fully comprehend, but that are entirely consistent with nature's accustomed patterns. Do you know any word more descriptive than miracle? For the fact that within the tiny submicroscopic cell each of us was at the moment of conception, were already contained the seeds of all the physical traits, all the mental characteristics, all the emotional proclivities, all the creative possibilities of the adults we are today. Compared to that, a sea splitting in two is simply child's play. There are more miracles without magic in this universe than the wisest of us could ever identify. The trouble is that most of the time we're looking for them in the wrong places.
And that's Roland Gittleson, who was a rabbi of Temple Israel in Boston for many years, Reform rabbi. Very well-known thinker of the previous generation. Okay, Bernie's now finished his thinking.
My take on what he says is that if you can't explain it, then it ain't a miracle.
So what happens inside a cell is so miraculous precisely because there's a scientific basis for it. So how the world functions in its scientific splendor is miraculous. But miracles are not just these weird things that happen with no explanation. Okay, Sai.
I want to go one step further than Bernie, namely that the miracle is something that exists, but I can't explain it in terms of its background because I don't have the knowledge to explain it, but I know it is explainable. For example, I know there are certain things happen in the world. I can't explain it because I'm not knowledgeable enough about it. But that doesn't mean it's a miracle. I think everything that occurs has an explanation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, anyone else? Speak now or forever hold your peace. Okay, Minya, we're back to you. Middle of page 36, left-hand column.
Modern Bible scholar Umberto Cassuto claims that what happened at the Red Sea is a common occurrence in the region of the Suez. He explains that at high tide, the waters of the Red Sea penetrate the sand from under the surface, and suddenly the water begins to ooze up out of the sand, which had been dry. Within a short time, the sand turns to mud, but the water continues to rise, and ultimately a deep layer of water is formed above the sand, and the whole area becoming flooded. Against this natural background, the biblical account can easily be understood. Cassuto, however, does not reject the notion that a miracle occurred at the Red Sea. The miracle, he says, consisted in the fact that at that very moment when it was necessary, in just the manner conducive to the achievement of the desired goal, and on a scale that was abnormal, there occurred, in accordance with the Lord's will, phenomena that brought about Israel's salvation.
What I said.
Yes, what you said.
So Marcia was the pre-thinking was done by Cassuto and confirms Marcia's analysis.
Right.
Okay, comments or keep going, Minion?
Philosopher Martin Buber seems to agree with Cassuto, but from a different point of view. Buber argues that the details of what happened at the Red Sea are not important. What is decisive, he writes, is that the children of Israel understood this as an act of their God, as a miracle. Buber explains that from a historical point of view, a miracle is an abiding astonishment, a feeling of surprise and awe that people sense in especially significant moments. That is what happened at the Red Sea and afterwards. The Israelites saw Pharaoh's advancing army drowned and destroyed. They were astonished by the events that saved them. At that moment, as Buber comments, the people saw in whatever it was they saw the great hand of God. Afterwards, generations of Jews who retold the story continued to find in its traces of wonder that they identified as the miraculous work of God. Whatever happened at the Red Sea, it is clear that the Egyptians were defeated and the Israelites went forth to freedom. The victory was surprising, a critical turning point in Jewish history. For those who were there and for those who would tell the tale afterwards, something momentous and astonishing happened. God split the sea, saved the Israelites, and assured their liberation. All of this seemed more than the work of ordinary people. Something wonderful occurred, something awesome beyond human comprehension. So they called their victory a miracle.
Okay. Any comments on Umberto Cassuto was a 19th century Italian Jewish Bible scholar, and Martin Buber was an early 20th century German psychologist and philosopher. Okay, comments, Marcia.
I like that. I think that's a nice explanation.
I agree.
Which one? Which one?
Buber, when you were reading Buber, I like that part of it. And the
Mhm.
fact that the Cassuto's version is this, we explain this as a miracle. I think it makes it more acceptable to more modern people, I think, when you read it that way. I was thinking of the 6-Day War when I was at the same time. It was a similar kind of thing. How could this have happened? It's amazing that it happened, and therefore it's a miracle, you know? So I do like that version.
Okay. Donna, Minya, Natalie, Shirley.
I agree with Marcia. I believe in miracles, and I can see them throughout the whole scriptures. And it was God's, and I believe in God's plan that we don't know what's going to happen. We do not know what God's going to do. So that's what makes it a miracle, or that's what makes it, if you understood God and you understood what he was going to do all the time, then he wouldn't necessarily be God. You might be God. So it's, maybe I'm not making sense. I don't know.
You are.
But the fact
Oh,
that,
we don't even know what Biden is going to do.
I'm sorry, what, Si?
Get it?
Anyways, it would be interesting, you know, if you say that the story of the Red Sea is only a story. It did not really happen. It's just a story to give the Jewish people a history. But what if you turned that around and had the Egyptians win? What would that be? Where would that go? For instance, if you like to just study stuff that could have happened.
Say the question again, Donna?
What would happen if
The Egyptians.
because you don't believe, or because you don't believe that the story of the Red Sea actually happened, that this is only someone's idea of what happened to give the Jewish people a history. Now, what if the Jewish people didn't win? What if they didn't walk across that water? What if the Egyptians won? Then what would have happened? Can you make
Well,
up
there'd
a
be no Jewish people today for sure. There'd be no Judaism today for sure.
right?
But I believe it happened. The miracles happened regardless of whether the Israelites were actually in Egypt or not. So I'm a rationalist with mystical things attached to the rationalism. So I believe contradictory things.
And
But
Don,
what you but if you don't believe in the Red Sea and the Jewish people escaping out of Egypt, then what happened to give the Jewish people their history?
Steve Bold, you are on speakerphone and we are in the middle of Torah study. Say hello to everyone in Torah study.
Study and I'll call you back later.
Okay.
Okay, bye now.
Donna, I have a retort to your question. What if the story of the Jewish enslavement in Egypt never existed and they were always in the land of Israel? And this was just a story that somehow was made up over time to give the Jews a little bit more panache in history. That could be another possibility also. Of course, I don't believe that there's any true archaeological evidence that the Jews were enslaved in Egypt. The Egypts have very good records, and there's nothing there about that I know of. Now, somebody might have some archival evidence somewhere that says the Jews were enslaved in Israel, in Egypt, and here's the evidence. So it's a retort. I'm not saying the Red Sea didn't exist. I'm just saying, you give us a position. Here's another one.
Okay. Interesting observation. Anybody want to take Donna's side? Does Donna get any support here from anyone? Donna needs support. Fight back at
So,
those
all right,
mean Matt rationalists. Marcia.
I want to go back to what I said before. So where do we create the Ten Commandments? I know that's another story, but it takes place in the desert. And do you want to put that into Israel, that somebody just carved out a rock and said, here you go?
Funny, you should mention this. Next week. Our topic is what happened at Mount Sinai.
Well, if you don't give us the desert, you don't give us Mount Sinai, you don't give us the Ten Commandments.
I don't agree. You can have one without the other.
Well, you can have the Ten Commandments, but they have to happen later at another point, right?
So what's the problem with that?
How
That's
come?
fine.
Did Size want to talk at that point?
And may I just say something about the migration or the exodus aspect? I believe it's between 600,000 or 2 million people exited all at once within a few days Egypt. You just think about that for a second. This is ancient times. They probably mostly walked. They didn't have carts, or maybe very few carts.
No, the Israelites used bicycles.
Yeah, but motorbikes, yeah, electric motorbikes.
But they
No,
also
just
live
off- they get off
200-300
they
the same
use they
south
use the
grid.
bicycles with no motors. God didn't like motors.
They
Hey, the
had camel.
bicycles, with the big wheels so they could go through the sand.
But-
Right,
But you think about
But they
that,
also live
and,
200-300.
and Donna, if it's true, then that would be a real miracle, because how do you get
I gotta go. to the pond.
at least even 600,000 people out of a place from where they live for 200 years?
And numbers are screwed up.
That would
They
be
live
your-
they live 200-300 years.
Yeah, but they
The
live
numbers,
for
I
about
mean,
200 years, I
when they-
think.
How long did Methuselah live? Supposedly.
Mammy.
a long time,
A long
900 and
time,
something.
and that number is probably
8
skewed
years or
also.
something.
I don't think the numbers necessarily have to be correct, you know?
Right.
That's where you
Um,
go back to, do you believe in God? Or do you not believe in God? And what do you believe about God? Can he do anything? He created the world according to Genesis, and everything that was in it. So, it goes back to, what do you believe? If you don't believe in him, then you don't believe this or you don't believe that. And that's okay. I mean, you don't have to.
mhm. But I'm trying to get you guys to see this in a more flexible way, and not to be in this binary thing where it either has to be this way or that way. Can't we mix things together in a creative manner?
I think we're going to have the Bible as according to Temple Beth Shalom now.
Ah.
I like that.
Because I'm
Except
trying to get a situation where we can emotionally embrace the beauty of the miracles without negating the the question of what actually is historically verifiable. So we want Richard's statement that whether there are, or his inquiry whether there are historical manuscripts that support or do not support certain things. We don't want to throw that sort of thinking out, but we also don't want to be forced in a position where we have to say, the miracles didn't take place, and therefore, in other words, I'm trying to have my cake and eat it too. I want to be a historian, I want to be rational, but I also want to embrace the beauty and splendor of irrationality. And you guys are still, it's one way or the other.
Does what you're saying, do you have frosting on top of the cake or not?
Absolutely. 3 different kinds of frosting.
Yes.
It's gonna be chocolate also.
And the
Oh, very
bakery
much
told
so.
me you can only have 1 type of frosting, and I said, no, I don't care, I want 3. And that's what I've got, because that's what I want, that's what I believe. And belief is not rational, but I also want to be rational. Bernie, you think I'm delusional?
No comment.
Bernie,
But I do have a question. It's been
Well,
bugging me for a while.
I think
Okay.
There are many other religions in this world, all of whom have their own version and vision of God and things that happened and how the world was created. What's the Reformed Jewish position on that?
you want me to answer that right now?
You can. If not,
It's at 12:28 in the afternoon. I've got 2 minutes. Wow. But can I just make small talk and avoid that? No, I mean, that's a very serious question, and I guess we need to discuss that in detail at some point. But there too, it's a mixture. On one hand, I had breakfast with a minister, as I mentioned, so I respect his religion and he respects mine, but we don't agree with each other. But on the other hand, so there's a mixture. On one hand, I can accept that he's sincere in his beliefs. On the other hand, I don't think his beliefs are true. And of course, I believe my religion is true. completely. On the other hand, this morning, as we saw, I don't believe that everything is historically verifiable. So I don't really believe my religion's any truer than his religion, but on the other hand, I do. I believe my religion's right and his religion's wrong. So how can I sell these things which contradict one another? You know, that's the contradictory nature of religion in America today. Does that answer your question a little bit, Bernie? No.
Bernie, you know, we
Now-
see here today, we've got 10 people on here and we have 11 opinions.
That's part of it.
I have at least three
Par for the
opinions,
course.
so I think that there's 10 people here and there's at least 15 or 16 opinions.
Italy is finally,
Okay, back to you,
Smiling.
Steve.
a little while before, I thought she was having a migraine.
Too much
Uh,
thinking causes migraines.
Lost my-
Before we conclude, I wanted to make an announcement. The Jewish Film Festival is happening starting February the 18th. And there's a multiple films being presented. There are actually four films at Peoria Arrowhead. If you don't want to have to drive all the way over to Scottsdale or to Chandler. And there's pamphlets in the
When does it
Yep.
start?
starts on the 18th of February. But there are pamphlets in the lobby of the temple, so you can grab one and pick out which film you want to watch. The one that I really enjoyed reviewing was the Remembering Gene Wilder.
Oh,
So that was quite good. So anyway, just to give it a little bit of promotional thing there. So
do
we
do
conclude.
they have a website for it too?
Yes, they do. The Greater Phoenix Jewish Film Festival. Greater Phoenix Jewish Film Festival.
Greater Jewish Phoenix Film Festival.
Yes. Or try Greater Phoenix, that might work better.
Okay.
All right, let us conclude then with a blessing and we'll go from there.
Baruch atah Adonai,
Eloheinu melech haolam, asher natan lanu
Torah
Torah
emet,
emet, v'chayei olam
olam
nata
nata
b'tocheinu.
b'tocheinu.
Baruch
Baruch
atah
atah
Adonai,
Adonai,
notein
Notein
haTorah.
Torah.
Blessed
Blessed
is
is
Adonai
Adonai, our God,
ruler
ruler
of
of
the
the
universe,
universe,
who
who
has
has
given
given
us the
us the teaching of truth,
And
implanting within us eternal life.
Blessed
Blessed
is
is Adonai,
giver
giver of the Torah.
Amen. Amen.
Amen.
All right, we'll see everyone Friday night at Temple.
Friday night.
Yep. And you can stream it if you're not able to come. So I
Steve, could
got.
you stay on a little bit after?
Sure. Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
I got the flyer for the Kavod Award
Already?
from Russ, and I sent him I sent it over to Brenda so that somebody else could look at it.
Okay.
Nobody else seemed to comment on it. It was sent to Steve Bold, Dave Katz, me, and the Temple, and Helene, I guess.
Huh.
I changed a couple words and I sent it back to him, and then he sent me a revision, which was worse than
Okay.
the first one. And so I sent it to Brenda and we talked about it this morning, and I sent it on to him.
Okay.
It looks like a plaque, and the Kavod
Oh.
Awards we give, Donna, we give every year to
Here.
people who really served unusually for the temple. They volunteered to an nth degree, so to speak. So, yeah, so I sent it to him this morning, and
Okay.
hopefully he'll get back to me. And I
Right.
got your email about the high holiday books.
Yes.
Those discounts are, that
That
expired.
expired Sunday.
Yeah, yeah.
So
So that's
anyway,
fine.
so it'll be $52.
It's not the end of the world. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
all right,
All right. So I just wanted to tell you about that. And
okay.
so there'll be it. He had it as like the Brotherhood.
Well, it is sponsored, the owning
Brotherhood
and the
Sisterhood, but he had it
dinner,
as honoring Brotherhood and
right,
Sisterhood members, and it's not. It's
right,
honoring the Kavod Award
right,
recipients. So
right,
I changed that sentence. That was a
okay,
big. Okay.
okay,
All right.
all right,
All right. Just wanted to let you know.
thank you,
All right. Take care.
you too,
Bye-bye.
bye.
See you soon.